is the 25th anniversary, 25th birthday party for the College of Architecture. We date this from March 11th, 1965, which is the date on which the governor of Indiana signed the legislation creating the College of Architecture and Planning. We have welcomed some very special guests today who will be introduced to you a little bit later on, who were instrumental in both creating the need, in demonstrating the need for a College of Architecture and Planning in Indiana, and for the location of that college here at Ball State University. I'd also like to welcome some of the administrators of the faculty across the university who are with us this afternoon, some alumni who met with the dean and I this morning, whom I will introduce, and to our faculty who are with us here this afternoon. And to our faculty who are with us here this afternoon. This is the first of what will become a year-long celebration of our 25 years of existence, and you will hear of plans, and in fact some of those plans are identified on the back of your program for what will become next year, the 1990-91 academic year, will be our silver anniversary year, and we're planning a year-long celebration with some special programs and some special events. The slides that you have been looking at as people are filing in are slides of the first 10 years of the college. We'll have that same tray of slides out in the atrium during the reception later this afternoon, and you will perhaps want to take a look at some more of those that were not shown on the screen. It is my pleasure at this time to introduce Professor Charles M. Sappenfield, Professor of Architecture, the first Dean of the College of Architecture and Planning, the Dean of this college from 1965 to 1981. Charlie.
Thanks, Jeff. We might call this Deja Vu Day after seeing all those slides up there. It's really nice to be here to celebrate this day, and very nice to see so many familiar faces, or faces that we don't get to see often enough. And to tell you the truth, I think that rather than introducing them in the middle of some slides here, I better do it right now. So I'd like to introduce just a few very special people who had some part in the formation of this College of Architecture and Planning at Ball State. If I look at the advisory committee for the Indiana Legislative Advisory Committee, I'd like to tell you the names of those people, and I'd like to have, we might have one or two stand here. Senator Bo Goodnight, Senator William Ulrich from Aurora, Frank Montana from Notre Dame. I don't know whether Frank was able to be here or not today. Bob Schultz, George Danforth, Gene Hamilton, and Don Gibson were the people on that committee. I had hoped that Frank Montana might be here. Of the Mayor John Hampton's group, who promoted the school, John Hampton is here today, and I'd like you to stand up, Mayor Hampton. When we look at, and I'd also think it might be nice for us to welcome our current Mayor Carey. If you would stand up, please, in the back of the hall there. When we look at the list of Ball State people who were so seriously involved and worked so hard to get this School of Architecture for Indiana here at Ball State, We have Dean of Faculties at that time and Vice President, and at one time acting President of the University, Richard Burkhart. Dean Burkhart, would you stand, please? Next to him is Dean Emeritus Victor Lawhead, Dean of Undergraduate Programs. Dr. J.C. Wagner, who was Vice President for Business at that time. Phil Conklin, who was his assistant at that time and worked for us in the legislature very hard. A lot of you should also know that he continued to work for Ball State even after he left the place, because he was a consultant to the American Society of Landscape Architects for the legislation creating landscape architecture registration law. And that was a successful endeavor in the state legislature. The director of the News Bureau at that time was Miss Marie Fraser. Marie, are you here? You should know how important the News Bureau was to this college and getting it formed and getting the news around the state that there was a College of Architecture and Planning. We can count over 300 news articles a year, approximately one news article per day in a magazine or a newspaper in Indiana, and we can be very proud of that. The others who were very active on the local committee were President John Emmons, Dr. Oliver Bum. If any of you are here today, let me know. Dr. Oliver Bum, Dr. John Hannaford, Dr. Alice Nichols. It was Dr. Alice Nichols who set a library in the main library. She was responsible for the fact that they had 600 books on architecture in a general teachers college library, which was rather rare. And we started our library with those 600 books, which has now grown to over 25,000 volumes. Dr. Lloyd Nelson, is Lloyd here today? Dr. Robert Bell was also on that group of university people working very hard. And standing at the rear of the room is Mrs. Leona Falls. She was Dean Burkhart's secretary in those days, and I think that you should get a look at her. Stand up, Leona. She also, wave your hand there. She's in a white coat. It takes people like Leona to keep us going around here. She's been a temporary and a part-time worker in our college since she retired as well. I'm looking to see if there's anyone I've missed. Have I missed anybody who was on John Hampton's committee? We had a committee of the Chamber of Commerce and the mayor's office and the university combined in this organization of the college. If not, we might go on with some slides to show you what the beginnings of this place really looked like. Now, I'm going to use some of the written matter just at the first here that Marie Fraser created on the occasion of the dedication of the addition to the building here. And so I'd like to read part of her work here, and I took the liberty of editing it slightly. So if we could see the first slides, I might start with this article by Marie. In this photograph here, you see Walter Scholler on the left. Walter Scholler, at the time of the formation of the college, was the regional director of the American Institute of Architects. To his, the next in line is Al Porteous of the firm Wright, Porteous & Lowe in Indianapolis. The top man there of that group is Gene Hamilton from Muncie, Indiana, of the firm Hamilton Graham. And the third man is he's from Florida. I'll catch his name in a few minutes. The next slide is Jim Turner, who was president of the Indiana Society of Architects at that time. Next is Al Porteous. And next seated there is President John Emmons, who was president of this university at that time. And then next to him, again, is Walter Scholler, who was here on the left. Eugene Hamilton tried for 20 years to get a state college of architecture established in Indiana. The former partner of Hamilton and Graham encouraged the Indiana Society of Architects to support legislation that would help ease Indiana's shortage of architects. With no state college of architecture, Indiana students were forced each year to go out of state to study at considerable expense, and indeed, when they left the state of Indiana, they stayed out of the state of Indiana, many of them. So many of the people who went out to study did not come back to us. The Indiana Society of Architects asked for a study of Indiana's architectural school needs. As a result of the ISA request, a subcommittee of the Legislative Advisory Commission was appointed, and it was headed by Representative Maurice Goodnight from Lafayette. A 7-member advisory committee included ISA's Gene Hamilton, Senator Wilfred Ulrich Aurora, Frank Montana, Dean at Notre Dame, and Bob Schultz, professor at Notre Dame, George Danforth, Dean at the Illinois Institute of Technology, and Don Gibson, Executive Director of the ISA. They visited all the sites who had indicated an interest in being a home for the new college. Indiana and Purdue universities, followed by Indiana State and the city of Indianapolis, were all prime contenders. Super salesman John R. Emmons, president, said Ball State Teachers College in Muncie was definitely interested and could support the program. To help Ball State make its presentation to the advisory committee when it came to Muncie, Mayor John Hampton appointed a 10-member blue ribbon committee. Enthusiasm ran high. Locally, it was a foregone conclusion that no other site had quite the combination of academic and community credentials to support architectural education. So positive was the approach made by the city and college leaders that the site committee soon forgot that Ball State was a teacher's college. 24 days later, the verdict was in. Engineering was out, fine arts were out, and the advantages of a metropolitan center for a college were immaterial. Muncie and Ball State had made the cut for the new College of Architecture and Planning. Nell Young, I was hoping that she was secretary to President Emmons at that time, and I was hoping that she could be here today so that she could finish the story she started with me over the telephone about having the advisory committee on campus and about having taken all of the notes with a tape recorder and then transcribing those notes of the meeting overnight using 2 student assistants who were working with her. And they worked all night long to get a report ready for President Emmons to take to Indianapolis the next morning at 8:30 for the Legislative Advisory Commission. And so the enthusiasm was really fantastic for getting the school here. Between July '64 and the 1965 legislative session, Ball State supporters did public relations work to cement the advisory committee's decision so that public and legislative reaction would be favorable when the bill to create the new college was introduced in the House. Ball State hosted visiting architects from the central and southern chapters of the AIA in Indiana that spring. You can see some of those people being hosted here. By February 8, 1965, some of the objections to an architecture college being located on a teacher's college had been overcome. On that day, Governor Roger Brannigan signed House Bill 1014, transforming the teacher's college into Ball State University. Part of that transfer to Ball State University was to create 5 colleges on campus so that we would be one of the colleges. In those days and to this day, the architecture profession pushes for architecture schools to be separate schools or colleges on a university campus. One of the things that IU was pushing for was to have the architecture program in their wonderful fine arts school. Purdue was pushing to have an architecture program in their wonderful engineering school. Ball State was pushing for architecture to be a separate and individual college on our campus, and that's why we're here. Another red letter day was on March 11, 65, the day the bill creating a college was signed by the governor. House Bill 1170 was co-sponsored by Representative David Metzger of Muncie and Representative William Brighton of Terre Haute in the House and by Senator Ulrich in the Senate. Excuse me. 3 days later, President Emmons called upon the Indiana Society of Architects for help and advice in organizing the new college. He told the Indiana Society, "We welcome your assistance and help. We have a great opportunity here to organize a challenging new program, perhaps different from any other in the U.S., and we think you can help us. We hope that as our program evolves, we will educate not only young architects who will be going into the profession, but also Ball State can provide a center in Indiana for workshops and clinics for practicing architects." James McClure Turner Hammond, president of the Indiana Society, responded. That's Jim Turner on the left in the right-hand shot. The Society is delighted with Ball State's approach and the invitation that we help with the formation of the new program. Architects in other states wish they could have more communication with their colleges of architecture. And I would tell you that that communication between Ball State and our College of Architecture and Planning continues very strongly to this day. It was House Bill 1170 that set us up, and the man who worked very hard to make sure that we had a College of Architecture and Planning was Dean Burkhart there in that picture on the right. Turner and Dean Burkhart went to Washington, D.C. to confer with specialists on architecture education at the American Institute of Architects. On April 27, 1965, AIA sent an advisory committee to Ball State to discuss ways of establishing the new college and its 5-year program. The AIA Advisory Committee included Walter Bogner from Harvard, Sidney Little from Arizona, Henry Camp Hefner from North Carolina State. Henry Camp Hefner just passed away within the past month. He had an honorary doctorate degree from this college. Elliot Whitaker from Ohio State, T. Trip Russell from Miami, Florida, and Walter Scholler, Jr., and Joanne Chatelaine, who represented the AIA in Washington, D.C. Elliot Whitaker is with us today, and if you'd stand up for a minute, Elliot, we would recognize you. Elliot is former dean. Thanks. Elliot is former dean of architecture at Ohio State University. The AIA Advisory Committee made valuable suggestions about how Ball State should proceed, including facilities and salaries, library holdings, and the need for a permanent building. Dean Camp Hefner, president of the Association of Collegiate Schools of Architecture, said the ISA could strengthen the Ball State program by finding outside funds, and indeed the Indiana Society of Architects and the Indiana Architectural Foundation have found funds for us. He told them that, it was Walter Bogner observed that anyone in teaching today would jump at the chance to formulate a new program and construct a new building for a college of architecture. It's a rare opportunity, and I can tell you I jumped at that opportunity and had the nice opportunity to spend the majority of my career right here at Ball State. I told you, I introduced Phil Conklin to you, who was our man in the legislature in those days. In town here, we had another person, Bill Brantley, a reporter at the Muncie Star, who was very interested in landscape architecture, very interested in horticulture, wrote a column for the local newspaper on roses growing and flower growing. He helped us. He was a frustrated architect in a way, and he helped us tremendously in getting our program started here. It was J.C. Wagner, whom I introduced earlier, who was vice president for business, who managed somehow to have the Navy decide that they'd like to give up their 22,000 square foot Naval Reserve Armory just about the same time that we needed to start a college of architecture and planning. We were really lucky to move into such a wonderful facility. As soon as we moved in, we started a competition to design a real building for the college, and the winning competition entry is on the right there, and you can see the model out in the atrium. Let's see. We have always had a terrific team of faculty, and it all began with the three on the left there. Dick Pollock, who's here today. Dick, would you stand? Bob Lackney was here, and Dave Hermanson, most of you will know. Dick Pollock is now chairman and CEO of Browning Construction in Indianapolis. He hires architects every year. The following year, Tony Costello, Marvin Rosenman, and Bob Taylor joined the faculty. We're now over, as you can see on the right, a group of about 20 at that time. We're now over 50 faculty and staff in this college. We could never have done the job without staff like Alice Groshong here on the left, who was the secretary for the college for many, many years. And on the right there you see Connie Hiddle, who is with us and who has built one of America's outstanding slide collection in the country, and one that is useful and available to students and faculty, and it's a rare one. We should know, it's always good for you to visit another architecture school, and you can see what a rare facility and what a rare staff we have here. You can also see a technical staff here who've been very important to us. This man on the left maintained the armory. Then he moved over and maintained this building. Dave Bartle has been with us since almost the first day since we were in the old building. Student secretaries are very valuable to us. These three on the left here, for some reason one year, we had 3 student secretaries. They were all named Connie. On the right here, you can see the students, and they're the real reason for our being here. You can see that in 1966, we had 150 applications. We admitted 135 students. 10 years later, we had 689, and we admitted 120. I'm not sure what the figures are today. They're higher than that. We've always been blessed with good students. The student on the left here is an alumnus who's president of the Fort Wayne chapter of the AIA, and his president-elect is also an alumnus. And on the right is a highly placed New York alumna. On the left here is Harry Egging from our first class. He was Ball State's first non-teaching Fulbrighter, and he studied in Finland. On the right is Johannes Dickel from Dusseldorf, Germany. He was our first foreign Fulbrighter to come here, and he's also our first recipient of a Master of Architecture degree. On the left here is Harry Moeller. He was the second person to receive a Fulbright to Finland. On the right is Indiana's first National Endowment for the Arts Architect in the Schools winner. She now practices in Alaska and is married and has, as I heard from some of my friends in Alaska, has one new child. Of course, our most famous alumni are our honorary doctorates. In the middle here, you see Nathaniel Owings of the firm Skidmore, Owings and Merrill. Nat Owings was born and grew up in Indianapolis, and he was certainly a Hoosier throughout his life. On the right there, you can see getting ready to receive receiving an honorary degree with the hood over his head there is Henry Kemphefner. Sitting down to the right are Eli Lilly of the Eli Lilly firm and Ewing Miller of Columbus of the Cummins firm. Please be sure to take the time today to see the exhibit that Cummins Engine Corporation so very nicely has provided us. The next 4 slides show approximately the content of our original curriculum, and the current one has not changed too much from that original one. 25% of the program comes in verbal communications, humanities, social sciences, and so forth. Another 25% is in history of architecture, philosophy of architecture, professional practice, and visual communications. Another 25% is in the building science parts of the profession, math, structural engineering, construction, building technology, and 25% on design, the positive integrative act. I'm focusing on architecture here because it was architecture that brought us here, and we're celebrating 25 years right now. In 2 more years, we can celebrate our first students in landscape architecture. The college was in its 3rd year when we started the landscape architecture program. The original curriculum promoted verbal communications through all 5 years, and our recent award-winning program, Writing Across the Design curriculum, continues that heritage. We were the first program to require a course in research for undergraduates. We were the first program in architecture to require 2 courses in computers. We carry those same interests and those same courses in our curriculum today. We were the only school to require architecture history in all 5 years, and we were the only school to teach it on a topical rather than a chronological basis. We were one of a handful of schools to require a HABS project for all students. The Historic American Building Survey also tried out its Historic American Engineering Record Program with Dick Pollock away for 1 summer on that program, and with a hair team housed here at BSU the following summer. Going through all these historic slides has made me very proud of the quality of our first year's student work, and the work we're doing in the freshman year is equally as inventive today. These would be some studies in line in 2 dimensions. These are line in 3 dimension. Exploded cubes of planes, and here you can see, get an idea of what our central Quonset hut looked like with our exhibition system of cardboard boxes and over 100 models displayed on it. You could, in this building, you could walk across between the exhibit area and the auditorium classroom area. Professor Hermanson was very accustomed to teaching large-size classes and having everybody and his brother walking through his classroom all the time. He was very happy when we finally got a classroom for him where you could close a door. More of the cubes. These are where the planes had transposed into a problem with walls for a building. This is on the left a freehand drawing and an introductory working drawing on the right. Some HABS drawings here, the Historic American Building Survey. 2 problems on the design of letters. Some of you may remember Jim Gooden, the architect from Muncie, Indiana. This is designing with letters. More designs with letters. You can see what happens when you get over 100 technical color problems. And then some problems designing with that color. One of the things that we strongly have believed in for 25 years is that the students should travel. They should get out of Indiana and they should get out of Muncie, if possible, to see what the rest of the world is like. This was our first overnight field trip. It was sponsored by the Indiana Limestone Institute. We took our students to Mitchell, Indiana, the home of Gus Grissom, where they made 100 proposals for a Gus Grissom memorial. This on the right is a freshman proposal, and in this case it was a proposal for the intersection of the highway with the access to Mitchell, Indiana. On the left here is from our first summer program, a proposal for downtown Muncie showing a loop road for the city. On the right is the design and construction by our students of the first Muncie Children's Museum. We wanted to make sure that our students didn't see the world through a TV set or a billboard, and so we got them out into the real world here. I think this is landscape architects going down the White River here. Marvin Rosenman took our students to London on the first polyarc program, which lasted a whole quarter, and got the students set up with studios in their hotel rooms in London. We continue that polyarc program today every other year. On the years that we don't take the students on a polyarc program, we take them other places like the Mediterranean, a tour of Italy, a tour to Mexico, a tour to Canada, a tour to Scandinavia, a tour to Russia. Marvin Rosenman also took the first group of our students to China, and it was the first tour by any architecture school to China. It was in 1980. Here you can see a kind of elective that gives the students a little fun as well as a lot of learning in terms of a hands-on steel course. We also, as far as I know, have had the only collegiate soccer team. We also have had, as far as I know, the only college football teams, the only soccer champions, the only bike-a-thon champions, the only volleyball champions, and we have a bike-a-thon team training right now. Our collegiate lecture series was a first for Ball State, first widely envied, now widely emulated, but one of the most extensive in the world. For years, my wife would clean up the house and serve cocktails to a group of 10 to 20 architects and townspeople who came in before a dinner in the Student Center and a lecture at 8 o'clock on a Monday night. These lectures gave us the opportunity to bring outsiders into Muncie and to bring outside expertise to the school that we did not have, but all of those people took away, and they still do. When they come in here on Monday nights, they take away a positive attitude about Ball State. We just won an award for the program Lunchline, started by Professor Rosenman and others, and I think that continues that tradition of taking our students outside the walls of the building. Typical lecturers would be Professor Tobias Faber, the rector of Denmark's Royal Academy, who is one of over 100 international visitors. On the right is Professor Paul Spiringen. He was Emmons Distinguished Professor one year. A natural outgrowth of the lecture series was a series of symposia, first for a regional meeting of the Council of Educational Facility Planners. That was the first symposium we had, soon followed by the one on the left here, New Problems, New Processes, New Professionals. On the right there, we're greeting Secretary of Transportation at that time, Secretary of Transportation Volpe. It was during those early days that energy problems first were made apparent to us. No one really knew what to do. One of the things we did was to see if we could get everybody in the school working in some way. There's a little booklet we published on energy activities of the school, which helped us to get a significant amount of research started. Here we've got a meeting, a conference on campus with Congressman Phil Sharp. It was in Indianapolis that Bob Kester taught a first energy continuing education course for professionals in the facility that we had in Indianapolis across from the State House. We were very lucky to have that facility under a grant for a couple years. On the right there is a conference sponsored by the Indiana Electrical Association where we took our upper level students for an overnight to Lake Monroe, meeting with association members for a 2-day conference. We've had historic preservation conferences. We've had a meeting of the Indiana Continuing Legal Education Forum and done a TV tape forum. The community-based projects program, with the first community-based project was the one in Mitchell, Indiana, and we've gone all over the state ever since under the direction of Tony Costello and other people in the urban design program. We had a symposium on environmental communications, and on the right there you can see a conference about Muncie. In addition to the lectures, we've run an exhibits program, and here you can see the first big outside program from Herman Miller Furniture Company. That was in the old central Quonset, so you can see the basketball markings still on the floor there under the exhibit. On the left is a work on an exhibit on furniture and architecture from Finland. The Indiana 200 program toured the state, was exhibited in the state capitol, and was a source for a special issue of Indiana Architect magazine. We have worked with Indiana Architect magazine on many issues. The opportunity to present the university with a faculty lecture also offered the opportunity to present Art Shaler with a cake here and a portrait in a frame there. We really like the artwork of this group from Fort Wayne who made that cake there. These lectures have been very well appreciated. The published lectures there, we sent them to people all over the nation, and they really enjoyed receiving those. They brought a lot of good public relations to the university from people around the country. It was a university function, the publishing of those. The Archives of Design has given us a great opportunity for public service, and it's not true that they stand on their head in the archives there. But what we've been able to accomplish under Andy Seeger's, Professor Seeger's direction has been fantastic. We have the complete offices of over 10 architects or landscape architects. But our teaching and our public service and professional service are incomplete without research and practice. And it's important, I think, to know that we have someone like Professor Hermanson on our faculty who has done the research on Indiana courthouses, which has been a publication as well as an exhibition. We opened the exhibit on Indiana courthouses at the headquarters of the AIA in Washington. In addition, you can see here the stairway in the Auburn Cord Duesenberg Museum. Dave Hermanson served as a consultant on that project. Professor Seeger's work with the Roman synagogue at Sardis, Turkey, has led to articles and lectures and a book by the Harvard University Press, but it's also led to the fact that we had one student there last summer, and we have two students there this summer with the connections that Professor Seeger has made for us. I use that as an example because our faculty are making those kinds of connections every day. On the left is Professor Rosenman's proposal for the upgrading of Burris School. On the right there, you see Art Shaler's painting in his Banana series sponsored by a University Arts grant. You can see Rod Underwood's contribution here to the architecture of Muncie in terms of the airport built by Hamilton Graham. And on the right there, Bob Taylor's contribution through the Muncie YMCA. There's a little jewelry shop I did here, and Ernst Bleem visited here only a few months, but he did this addition to a house on the right. It's very important, I think, the contributions our faculty have made across the state of Indiana in terms of consultation and in terms of work that has stretched the value of architecture in this state. Most importantly, though, is the work of our alumni. This building on the left was designed originally by Dick Pollock. The model for that building, the Hyatt Hotel, the first model was built on the 6th floor of this building by students. On the right here, you can see the White River State Park. The Browning Day Pollock plan for that, or Browning Day Pollock Mullins Deerdorf plan for that park. But the original charrettes for that White River State Park were done by our students working on the top floor in suites on the top floor of this Hyatt Hotel in Indianapolis. It's fantastic to think that we have about 500 alumni scattered around Indiana, and what is happening to the environment by these people in architecture, landscape architecture, preservation, and planning. Thanks very much. Sorry. Walk away with it.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you for your remarks and for that view of some of the early years in the development of the college. Certainly, this college has benefited by the leadership of both of our deans, by Charlie Sappenfield and by our present dean, Bob Fisher. Both of them have had great visions. Both of them have maintained and demanded high standards. Both of them have brought their dedication and enthusiasm to this college and to its programs. It is my pleasure now to introduce Dean Robert Fisher.
He just left.
I think he's pulling my leg.
Wouldn't touch you.
Well, my name is Poverty Clown, and I'm from Balloons with Treasures, and I have been elected today to give a presentation. And since you are the dean, you are to be the recipient of this.
Thank you very much.
And it's to celebrate the 25 years of the CAP.
Wonderful.
Now, I have a singing telegram for you. Are you ready? Are you ready, sir?
Yes, I'm ready. Yes.
You didn't want to hurt my feelings.
No.
Okay. I've come here singing this telegram bringing to say happy birthday, CAP. Oh, we would have sent a simple card, but none was found to say just how much we love you each and every day. And as for the present, it was adolescent to buy something you don't need. For the guy who has everything, there was nothing left to buy. And knowing you had everything, they didn't even try. Well, now you know, really, we're just teasing. We aim to be pleasing, so here's something just for you. For the guy who has everything, all the joys and love that friendship and family bring. Here's a birthday balloon bouquet for you and your school. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Very nice. I have no idea who is responsible for that. But it was a nice comic interlude. Yes, yes. I feel after listening to Charles talk about the beginnings of the college and how complicated and how many people were involved in the establishment of the college, that I should start out with something like 105 years ago, we brought forth on this university a new college. It sounded that complicated and that difficult. But I don't think I could carry on with the analogy or the Gettysburg Address. I read some time ago that someone claimed to have a dog that lived for 25 years. This, of course, is the equivalent of a 175-year lifespan for a human being. So the fact that the dog simply survived for 25 years is an impressive statistic. The fact that the College of Architecture and Planning at Ball State University has survived, has merely survived, for 25 years is not so impressive. Given the circumstances of our establishment's survival, in fact, a measure of success was assured. We were and are the only state-supported College of Architecture and Planning in Indiana. We were born into what one might characterize as the halcyon days of higher education. The population curve for college-age students was rocketing upward. The benefits of higher education were universally unquestioned, and legislatures nationwide were funding higher education on a no-strings-attached basis. If you add to this picture an energetic young dean with excellent instincts for hiring good people, and the resultant cadre of young, able, and dedicated faculty, the survival of the college was a foregone conclusion. So the fact that we're still here after 25 years doesn't mean much, if anything. What is important is what we have done with those 25 years. What have we accomplished in 25 years, and what are the descriptors of these accomplishments? If we were General Motors, we could point to the quantitative descriptors: increased sales, growth in net profit, return on investment, and so on. And in fact, we have those types of descriptors. As Charles has pointed out in various times, we have experienced significant growth. We started with 4 faculty. We now have almost 50. Our total faculty and staff complement has grown from 6 to 60. We have grown from a unitary college of 1 department to a college of 3 departments. We started with 1 degree program, the Bachelor of Architecture. We now have 7. Bachelor's degrees in Architecture, Landscape Architecture, Urban Planning and Development. Master's degrees in Architecture, Landscape Architecture, Urban and Regional Planning, and Historic Preservation. We began operation, as Charles suggested, as said, in 1966 in 3 interconnected Quonset huts. We moved into a new building in 1972 and tripled the size of the building with an addition in 1982. In 1971, we graduated about 30 people. We now have 1,200 alumni. And the student body, the resultant or the generator of this growth in faculty, degrees, and facilities have grown from our initial admitted class of 137 to almost 600. These are the quantitative descriptors. But what about quality? How good are the students? How qualified are the faculty? How strong are the curricula and the instruction? And how highly regarded are our alumni? These are the key questions, and what really matters as we look back over these 25 years. Quantitative descriptors have meaning only as they point to quality. One could infer from that had we not been doing something right, indeed a number of things right, we would not have experienced the growth that I just described. That's a fair inference. Had we not achieved a reputation for producing a quality product, we would not have had the buyers. However, I believe that we have a few descriptors that speak more directly to the quality of the college as it sits at this moment in history. So the following might be called a quantitative snapshot of the college. We are experiencing an annual growth in the number of applicants in our undergraduate programs, and in so doing are bucking 2 national trends. Nationally, the population curve for college-age students is on a downward slope. In 1981, the year I was appointed dean, this growth curve topped out and it has been plummeting ever since. And it will continue to drop until 1992. And nationally, the interest in the environmental design and planning professions among high school seniors has declined. The last figures I saw was a drop from 5% to 4%. But despite these counter indicators, we have seen our applicant pool grow to 6 applicants for each available slot. Moreover, we're seeing a dramatic increase in out-of-state applicants. Over the last several years, approximately 1/3 of our incoming class has been from other states. About half of these students are from the contiguous states of Illinois, Michigan, and Ohio, but we are attracting students from all parts of the United States. Every year, for example, we admit 6 to 12 students, which represents 5 to 10% of our total admitted class from the New York, New Jersey area. We're getting more attention from international students. Just last week, we admitted a young lady from Kuwait. Those of you who are not familiar with Kuwait, it's a country about the size of Rhode Island that sits on 10% of the known world oil reserves. Her father is a United States educated architect who is owns the largest architectural engineering firm in the Mideast. He gave his daughter the choice of going anywhere in the world to school. She came to Ball State. While on the subject of the composition of our incoming classes. I would note one other trend that may or may not be related to the issue of quality, but it's certainly a good sign. In its early years, the college had many of the attributes of a monastery. The students toiled in poverty. They spent hours worshiping at the altar of design, and there were no women. One of these descriptors has changed. Last year's fall admitted class was 40% women, up from 33% for the previous 2 years. How good are these students? As you might suspect, they are very good indeed. You are very good indeed. If you admit 1 in 6, you have to end up with good students. Ball State's most prestigious scholarship is the Whitinger Scholarship. 12 Whitinger Scholars are chosen each year, and the competition is extremely keen. The minimum qualifications for eligibility for this scholarship are 1,200 combined SATs and graduation in the upper 10% of the high school class. Indications are that the average student admitted to the college for the fall of next year will have Whitinger Scholarship qualifications. To give you a basis of comparison, last year's average combined SAT for Indiana students entering universities was about 870. We have very good students. Not only are they academically qualified, but they are highly motivated and hardworking. And in dealing with them, I can tell you that they are very nice people. How good are the faculty? By college policy, we recruit faculty from diverse educational and experiential backgrounds in the firm belief that if our students are to receive a solid education in their respective professions, they must be exposed to a broad range of attitudes and philosophies. These faculty are active in research and professional practice, winning national and state design competitions, being elected to state and national offices in their professional organizations, have been selected for a number of campus honors. We have had numerous Ball State Outstanding Teacher, Outstanding Young Faculty, and Outstanding Researcher award winners among our faculty. Just last year, one of our people, Rod Underwood, whom you'll hear from a bit later, was named as one of 3 university teaching professors. This is the university's most prestigious award for long-standing excellence in teaching. One could hardly call me an objective observer, but I absolutely believe that we have a faculty as strong as any in the country. What about the curricula? Curricular quality, as I'm sure many of you know, most of you know, is very difficult to get at in specific terms. We do spend a good deal of time looking at refining and revising our curricula. The architecture curriculum alone has undergone 4 major revisions over the 25 years. So we work at maintaining the currentness and tautness of our curricula. And the best direct measure of curricular quality, I believe, is the performance of our graduates. But before talking about the alumni, which I'll do in a moment, I think I can speak to a few things that point to the quality of the education that we provide our students, at least implicitly. As Charles noted, we have a guest lecture and exhibit series that brings highly regarded professionals and their products to the college. We have national and international study tours that take our students to other cultures and contexts. As Charles again noted, we have taken students to Canada, Mexico, India, China, Scandinavia, Russia, Greece, Egypt, Israel, and of course, Western Europe. We currently have a group of 32 students and 2 faculty in Europe as part of our biennial field study tour. This tour is called PolyArc. This is PolyArc 10. It's in its 10th year, 10th program. It's its 18th year. About now, the students are engaged in probably a very difficult exercise. They're trying to find a good place to eat in Paris. We give our students on-site hands-on experience in urban design via our community-based projects. As Charles showed you some slides earlier, our faculty-student teams have been involved in over 60 projects in over 50 Indiana communities. We have an internship program that provides students with professional office experience during their career in the college. Our computer competency program begins with 60 hours of instruction in computers in first year, builds through computer applications and courses in the middle years, and ends with computer electives in the last 2 years. And finally, I'm pleased to note that over the last 3 years, 2 of our educational enrichment programs have won national awards. The AIA has a national program called the Education Honor Awards Program that recognizes excellence and innovation in education. Our Writing and Design Curriculum program won 1 of these awards in 1988, and our Lunchline program won this year. The Writing and Design Curriculum program is one that combines writing with design in the studio, and Lunchline connects our students with internationally known professionals worldwide via teleconferencing. Our success rate is really quite good with this program. They have given 10 awards over 3 years, and we have won 2 of them. This is a very quick overview of these crucial, I believe, qualitative components of an educational program: the students, the faculty, and the curriculum. I'll leave it to you to judge whether or not this represents a good 25 years of work in progress. The crucial final question, of course, is what is the quality of the people who have been the focus of our efforts, our alumni? We are pleased to say that every indicator that we have strongly suggests that our alumni are highly regarded and they're doing very well in their chosen professions. And I will tell you that those indicators are not what they've told us. Our graduates are sought by firms all over the nation. Firms are seeking interns. Sometimes we have people calling, asking for both graduates and interns. I had a call a few years ago from an architect in Iowa asking for 2 interns and 2 graduates. I asked him how he learned of us. He said that he had spoken to an architect in Texas who said he was getting good people from Ball State. Now, that didn't tell me exactly what I was trying to find out. I never did find out where that came from. Many of our graduates are reaching the point in their careers at which they are moving into ownership positions in firms. Roger Nuenswander, who was our lecturer last Monday, is one of our alumni. He's the vice president of TVS in Atlanta. Tom Baker is a partner in IMPay. Craig Hartman is a partner in SOM. Craig Mullins and John Deerdorf are partners in Browning, Day, Mullins, Deerdorf in Indianapolis. Jim Kratzit is the K and MSKTD in Fort Wayne. Many of our alumni who are with us today have established their own firms or in principle are principals in previously established firms. Eric Ernstberger, I believe, is here. He's Rundell and Ernstberger in Muncie. Harold Garrison is president of Manchester Development Corporation in Indianapolis. Hal Covert, right in front of me here, is a partner with another alumnus, John Hawkins in Covert, Hawkins Armstrong of Jeffersonville. And there are many, many others. What one must keep in mind, I think, is that we graduated our first class in 1971. This means that the old-timers in this group have just hit 40. So all of our alumni have their most productive professional years ahead of them. However, I believe that even on the basis of these early returns, we can conclude that we're not doing too bad a job. One final point about quality. One qualitative descriptor is the strength of our reputation among our colleagues at other other schools. I recently attended the annual meeting of the Association of Collegiate Schools of Architecture in San Francisco. In a private conversation, John Meunier, who is the president-elect of the association, made a special point of going on at some length about how great a job we were doing at Ball State. I was pleased by these comments for two reasons. One, it's always nice to hear good things about a program in the college. And two, John was one of the few people who wanted to talk to me about something other than our basketball team. The conference was in San Francisco and ended on the Tuesday before Ball State played UNLV in Oakland. So basketball was a hot topic. Even Dennis Domer, who chairs the AIA Education Honors Committee and heads up the AIA Education Honors Jury, felt that he had to make sure I understood when he said, "Well, Bob, I see you won another one," that he meant that we had won another honor award, that we hadn't won another game in the NC2A tournament. To get back to Meunier, a less appreciated aspect of John's comments was the expression of admiration for our ability to overcome the odds and build a strong architecture program at Ball State in Muncie. I didn't respond to John's vague, perhaps unintentional pejoratives. I simply thanked him for his comments. Had I responded, I could have noted several reasons why we've experienced the success we have. I could have mentioned the fortuitous circumstances of our establishment that I noted earlier, and the faculty and the leadership at Charles Sappenfield, but I could also have given him a couple of additional reasons for this success. These are that Ball State University is an excellent university and is getting better every year under the leadership of President Worthen and Vice President Vanderhill and the other vice presidents. I could also have told him that we have had outstanding support from our university and state legislature over these 25 years. It is an irrefutable fact that you do not add 6-degree programs and 45 faculty and build 2 new buildings without a heck of a lot of support from your university administration and the legislature. I'm not going to attempt to name all these people, but that would be impossible. But I do think it's important to recognize that President Emmons, President Bell, President Worthen, Provost Cook, Provost Vanderhill, Vice President Kinghorn, Associate Vice President Perry, in their previous or current lives as liaison heirs with the state legislature, and Rich Burkhart as both provost and president were and are absolutely essential to any success that the college has enjoyed. In the parlance of the motion picture industry, if we in the college are the directors, they are the producers. And if we extend the analogy one step further, our legislators are the financiers. Without their largesse, we would still be in the Quonset huts. Well, we aren't in the Quonset huts. We're here, and this is the picture, at least my picture, of the college to date. That's the yesterday and today. I again ask you to be the judge. How we've done. What about tomorrow? The future of the college. The easy, possibly accurate answer is that I don't know with any degree of specificity what the future holds. I would challenge anybody that was here 20 years ago to state, under oath, that they predicted at that time that we would add 6-degree programs, be in the superb facilities that we currently occupy, have almost 600 students, and perhaps the real stumper, that they could have predicted that we would have experienced the explosive growth in the technology of teaching that has occurred. 20 years ago, the most complicated technology that we had to cope with was a 35mm camera. When I became dean, we had one Apple II computer. Currently, we have over 100 computers in the college, worth in total about $2 million. And that is not to mention video cameras, video editing equipment, visual simulation equipment, sophisticated photographic equipment, fax machines, and so on. The halls of academia are becoming the halls full of machines. Anyway, I think I've made the point about predictions. However, I can say what I would like to see happen. In regard to our current programs, I want to see the continued maturity of our graduate programs. They have not yet reached their full potential. I want to see our continued development of computer and video techniques for enhancing the efficiency and enriching the content, most importantly, enriching the content of our instruction. In the area of new initiatives, I would hope fervently that our current proposal as before the Indiana Commission for Higher Education for a master's degree in urban design in Indianapolis will be approved and funded. It is the right degree at the right time, in the right place, and we're the best people to do it. I have an equally fervent hope that our proposal for an applied research center for the college will be funded. Our professions, our state, and our society have a huge unmet need for the applied research, the research that will be immediate and have utilitarian applications that this unit could produce. The examples are so numerous that they defy listing, only a few. The testing of new building products and assemblies. How can we bring the building industry into the 20th century? Affordable housing. There has to be an answer. What is it? Elderly housing. There must be a better answer. What is it? Office buildings. Why has the basic organization of an office building not changed for over a half century? The environment. How can our professions be leaders as they should be instead of followers? The centers of our cities. What went wrong and what can we do? What can we do to make it right? Our urban vehicular corridors. Why do they sicken our sensibilities rather than quicken our pride? These are only a few of the applied research projects that be conducted in this center. However, there are two things that I, above all else, hope will come to pass. I hope that over the next 25 years, the focus of the faculty, staff, and students of this college will be the same as it has been for its first 25 years on the quality underlined, of what we do. And I hope that on our 50th birthday, the person who stands here will be as proud of this college as I am today. Thank you for being here. We are grateful to you for your attendance. A special recognition for our special people, our students and alumni. They're the reason I've stayed in education for 25 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. One of the greatest resources of this college is its growing cadre of alumni who have graduated from its 7 baccalaureate and master's degree programs. Our first class graduated 29 in 1971, and we hope they will hold a 20th reunion during our silver anniversary year next year. We can now point with pride to the professional careers and achievements of over 1,200 alumni. They are located from coast to coast and beyond, and are distinguishing themselves as professional leaders in both the public and private sectors. They are paving the way for our current students, current graduates who find themselves very competitive in the marketplace for entry-level positions. The reputation of the College of Architecture and Planning at Ball State and of its alumni is well known and respected nationwide. In our planning for this silver anniversary year, a primary goal has been to strengthen the college's ties with its alumni. To that end, Dean Fisher and I invited a representative group of alumni to meet with us this morning to consider the establishment of a CAP alumni organization. They will serve as a task force to work with us in the months ahead in creating an alumni organization and in developing alumni programs that will be relevant to our alumni. We also seek greater participation of alumni in our educational programs as guest lecturers and critics, or in planning field study or internship opportunities. Many of our special programs for the coming academic year, which Professor Underwood will describe shortly, will involve our alumni. At this time, I would like to recognize those members of this task force whose schedules have allowed them to remain with us for this afternoon program. I would ask them to stand as I read their names and ask you to hold your applause until I have recognized them all. First, Eric Ernstberger, who received a Bachelor of Landscape Architecture in 1978. Harold Garrison, Bachelor of Architecture in 1978. Hal Covert, Bachelor of Architecture in 1976. Ron Menzie, Bachelor of Architecture 1979. Ed Mitro, Master of Urban and Regional Planning in 1983. Janelle Strayer, Bachelor of Architecture 1988. And Julie Whaley, Bachelor of Landscape Architecture in 1981. Please join me in expressing our appreciation for their support. I would like to invite Dean Fisher back to the podium, who will announce a special anniversary gift.
Thank you, Jeff. Just this week, we received notification of a substantial financial gift to the college. We thought it was appropriate to announce this gift at this time for two reasons. One reason is it's one of the largest single donations received by the college in its history. But secondly, and most importantly, it is given in the memory of Gene Hamilton. And Gene Hamilton, as noted earlier in the program, was one of the driving forces in the establishment of the college at Ball State and a strong supporter of the college in its formative years. So the announcement of a gift in his memory is most appropriate for this occasion. Gene Hamilton was a lifelong resident of Muncie and a graduate of what is now Muncie Central. At that time was Muncie High School, now Muncie Central High School. He received his degree in architecture from University of Michigan. He was registered to practice architecture in Indiana in 1935. He established with Fred Graham the firm of Hamilton Graham in 1940. He practiced in that firm until he retired in 1968. Over those 28 years, he was responsible for a large number of buildings in the Muncie area and elsewhere, a notable example being the Delaware County building. He was instrumental in his role in the establishment of the college, as Charles indicated, was twofold. He was instrumental in convincing the state that they should establish a College of Architecture, as it was called at that time. And he subsequently was appointed by the governor to the Site Selection Committee that chose Ball State as the location for the college. He was a fine man, an accomplished architect, and a good friend. The donor wishes for this gift to be utilized to endow a scholarship for one of our college students. The fund will be entitled the C. Eugene Hamilton Scholarship Fund, and the scholarship will be entitled, therefore, the C. Eugene Hamilton Scholarship. Mrs. Hamilton, the donor, is with us today. Mrs. Hamilton, we thank you. You honor us as we honor your husband. So could you please stand and allow us to recognize you and thank you with our applause.
I'd next like to introduce Professor Rod Underwood, who will take a moment to describe for you some of the special programs and activities that we have planned for our silver anniversary year.
And he means a moment. You can read. Nothing is more insulting than to read something to someone. We are going to have our major homecoming event, coincidentally with homecoming. Seemed like a logical option. We're going to have a little warm-up. We are, as this college, sponsoring a small warm-up. Before that, we're going to call it University. The rest of the university will be participating, but really we're behind it all. Okay. On homecoming, we will be unveiling a new alumni terrace, and that terrace will be dedicated to the alumni, and it will be, I think, probably on occasion used by the students on the south side of the building to welcome back the alumni. Since we do everything here as a college for the first time, we are going to have our own homecoming float. Something works here. And can we get the lights? We've thought of a couple of options. This could be, well, could be Garfield, I guess, here. But we think we can have an alumni homecoming float. Can we make this? Here's another option, possibility, depending upon the degree of technology that we wish to engage in. The other aspect of it is we think that we can have, since we have a lot of overachievers in this college, we can have probably the first collegiate marching band in the homecoming parade. And there are a couple of options that it might look like. I don't know if this one would be appropriate for us. Get the next one, Bob. Maybe it will look more like this. But I would suggest that perhaps over the summer you may wish to work on your kazoos and paper and comb and any of those who have a trombone or a drum or something, because we'll do it. The alumni terrace, which would be dedicated at that time, will roll them, Bob. This is high-tech stuff here. Okay. These are drawings which represent the character of the terrace. We want it to be a people place. And you might notice on the plan on the right-hand side, your right, that it will be, the concrete will be removed and brick will be placed in the terraced floor around our new alumni tree, which will be somewhere behind our new alumni dedication plaque. The terrace will be paved with brick that will look like this, and now we need lights again. And those of you who know an alum, or would like to know an alum, or would like to be an alum, you can have a brick like this placed in the terrace, and it can be, in your presence, engraved with Harry Egging's name. There will be other options available at a slightly higher cost if you wish to have a name other than Harry's placed on it. But Harry's name and graduation year and yours can appear on the plaza terrace for your children to come back and see the next 25-year cycle. I would like to conclude this ceremony, and I think you've probably all noticed the typo on the schedule here where it says 4 o'clock. We are right on schedule, and if the alumni who are present today will meet under the sweet gum tree on the alumni terrace, we're going to plant that sucker. Okay? If you would go out there now, please. Thank you.